a red flag flying here.
Yay, I'm here. Well, if you're a listener, hello, welcome to Political Muted. But if you've ever used Zoom, what you'll find is that sometimes it decides it's going to go really slowly. So you click on show the video and nothing happens. So you think, oh, I didn't click loudly enough. So then you click a bit harder and it sort of immediately comes on and goes off again. And so anyway, here I am now with, oh no, only a team of 3 today. Laura, one of our dream team stars, she's poorly today. So we wish her all the best. Don't worry, you're not missing anything. Without you, it's no good anyway. And Paul, sort of give her all our love, and sort of hope that she gets better soon. And how are you, Paul?
Listening. Yeah, I'm fine. She's listening. She's upstairs, so she's just not feeling right. She hasn't been right for a little while, but she will be interacting with the show, I imagine. So
oh, maybe commenting.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we would expect a particularly intelligent set of comments this week. Samantha, watch out for the ones by Laura, and then we can comment on how clever she's been. Paul, are you all right? Are you feeling all right today?
Yeah. Standard, really. Standard.
Are you back at school yet?
Yeah, so our lockdown ended on Thursday, so we've been back for 4 days. And it sort of goes, everyone's trying to do what they can, but you know, we've had a number of other COVID tests, so it's happening all the time, really. It's sort of part of what's going on all the time.
I think we're just going to have to cope with the fact that schools are going to be it's going to be like Christmas lights on, off, all over the place, sort of randomly. Anyway, it's great to see you, Paul. Stuart, hello.
How are you doing?
I see. How are you? You're not poorly tonight, are you? You're okay?
No, just tired.
Lovely new background, I might say there.
Yeah, it's my wife's office. So,
oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. I love the flowers.
Yeah, it's very May, the colours, clearly.
Yes. No, really. Sort of normally you sit in a kind of a primeval gloom. She obviously condemns you to the stock cupboard normally, but sort of it's great to see you in such a lovely setting. I noticed that Unite are running something about TV licenses that you'll be getting involved with this week.
Yeah, there's a campaign, obviously, to support the people who would be losing out on a TV license, and that'll be put to the government. Hopefully,
are you trying to get it means tested so people like me who can afford it will continue to pay, or do you think this is this just a universal benefit that you think people ought to have?
Wow, it's part of a bigger picture, isn't it? Obviously, social security is such a big thing, and it's all intertwined. If you snip little bits off the edges, it really does damage people. So just getting back to the status quo being, an achievement with this government, but getting it means tested would be brilliant.
I mean, I think it's so important that people have TV. I mean, for goodness sake, losing your TV in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, you've got precious little if you're an old, frail person who's needing to isolate. For goodness sake.
Yeah, it's information. It's for lots of people, it's the only companion.
My grandmother, when in her later years, she decided that the people on the TV were real and the people around her were not. And she used to talk away to the TV, and she used to be convinced that they used to answer her back. And the one that made, I mean, it's quite cruel really, but the one that made us laugh always is that she used to say, there's one on, he particularly likes me, because every time he comes on, he says, nice to see you.
That's
Sam, I get so much information about chickens from you. I mean, I love that little chicken kind of thing for a chicken with, was it a chicken with a broken leg and it was in a little...
Yes, I saw that and I did react favorably towards it, and I'm sorry if you're watching this, but it was actually incredibly cruel. That was a chicken. should have been put down that had a broken hip, and somebody decided to make it a wheelchair instead. You can, obviously, like any animal, you can nurse a chicken back to health, but if it's got a broken hip, it probably doesn't need to be nursed back to health.
Do you put your own chickens down?
I have not yet. I pray for the, and I don't believe, I pray to the non-existent deity for the bravery to put my own chickens down, because I do think it's better for them than dragging them out to the vets. It's very stressful to put them in a car and drive them somewhere.
My grandfather kept chickens, you know.
Yeah.
And he sort of, during the war, he said it would be good, and it put a bit of meat on our table every now on a Sunday. Anyway, he had to give up in the end because he couldn't bring himself to kill them. So the only way he could get them on the table was that he had to take 2 down to the butcher's, and the butcher used to kill one for him and then keep another for the shop. So it was much more expensive than if you'd have just bought the chickens at the butcher's. Right, okay. Welcome to you all. I'm spent far too long on that, but it's there we go. And it's time for, and welcome listeners, and it's time for... I'm going to choose Stuart last for his moment of the week because it's a really exciting one, and I'd like a little chat with him about it. But sort of let's see what the other moments of the week are. I don't know what yours is. Come straight back to Sam. What's your moment of the week, Sam?
So just today, there has been sort of an unveiling of a new sculpture in Shildon. It's been put together by the Friends of Jubilee Estate, and it's just lovely because it's a group of residents who've come together, cleared up an area that's a problem area, commissioned a piece of artwork, got it put there, all under their own steam. And I know, right? It's very easy to, whenever anything needs to be done, be like, oh, the council needs to do this and the council needs to do that. But actually, all the council are people, and people can do an awful lot if they just put their mind to it. So I think it did involve an asset transfer. The land belonged to Durham County Council. They put a proposal forward, and Durham County Council said, yeah, great, have it, that's fine. So yes, it's a little sculpture of a train with some minions on top of it, like minions from Despicable Me.
And how much did that cost, that little sculpture?
Exactly. So it's a local man who makes amazing, massive welded metal sculptures. So I think he has actually donated it. But, you know, if you commissioned him to, well, actually, no, I think they have paid for it. I don't know. Anyway, it's a real piece of art, and we're very lucky to have such talented, community-minded people in Shildon.
I mean, I applaud them, and it's lovely when residents do it themselves rather than getting the council to do everything. You're absolutely correct. And so there's a whole load of things where the council can't do it. It has to be the people on themselves. But well done, brilliant moment of the week. So what about a Jubilee?
It's somewhere on Jubilee Estate, but near the tunnel top.
Right, okay. Well, sort of.
I'm going to go on a mission to find it.
and sort of well done to those residents. Thank you, Paul. Moment of the week.
I just need to check firstly if people can hear me a bit better. Is that better? I had
Yeah.
some funny settings. Yeah. So anyway,
right?
yeah, my mum. No, it was a volume thing. So but I've been fiddling. So yeah, my moment of the week is a lack of a moment of the week about Julian Assange. So there's this huge trial going on at the Old Bailey. About the extradition of Julian Assange. It's 10 years to the month since WikiLeaks, in conjunction with The Guardian, started releasing things about how a lot of the people in the NATO alliance had been basically doing war crimes, and these were released, and then Julian Assange became he claimed asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy, and then they eventually kicked him out, and he's been, for a bail violation, he's been kept in maximum security prison for a year to this point. And I see nothing about this in general. Like, we're not hearing about this. Is the trial of the century, really. I know it's only an extradition, but this man he is the ultimate whistleblower, and he is the epitome of what free speech should be. No one's disputing what they released was correct or true. What they're saying is that maybe, or it wasn't very caring for those people whose names were released. Apparently, Julian Assange was very, very, very careful about protecting people in there and tried to redact everything. And other people stopped him from doing that, who were releasing the stories and things like that. But anyway, that's sort of beside the point. We're not hearing very much about this at all. And it's interesting to me the way stories like this go away. So the Panama Papers, that went away. Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, that's went away. They seem to be trying to keep this quiet, but you can't keep a story from 1982 about Jeremy Corbyn out of the press like for more than like 2 days. You know, there's always something coming up, and it's always the same things recycled. And for me, it's a real worry that that's what the media are concentrating on, because the big story for me at the moment is, I know there's loads going on. There's COVID, there's Donald Trump, there's all the things we're going to be talking about today, but this is bigger, I think.
Thank you. I mean, I have a thing about whistleblowers in as much as if you blow the whistle, wonderful, wonderful, and God bless you, and how brave. But you know, very often people break the rules to blow the whistle, and sort of then they want to get away without the consequences of breaking those rules. And I don't have much personal patience with them. They knew they were breaking the rules. They did so because there was a greater good in blowing the whistle. But then, well, then you broke the rules. Or sort of, do you, I mean, in a way, he broke those rules. Should he not suffer for them in the way that anybody else who broke the rules for a less noble cause would? Sort of, why should society have the right to say, yes, but that was a good thing we wanted to know when you broke the rules, therefore we're going to let you off? Is that, I mean, what do you
I
got to
think
think
we
about?
need, surely as a nation, we need to know if we are doing war crimes, and surely these things are in the public interest. And he's not being tried for releasing those things at the moment. They're trying to extradite him to the USA, where most experts think he will be treated extremely unfavorably for what he has done. But he released files that he obtained. He didn't really like, so I don't know enough about this case actually in the details of it, but he was under no obligation not to release those things. He just, it was about how the Guardian released it and how WikiLeaks operated as a website and how the internet works. This is all about like sort of control of the internet by powerful people over time. So the internet used to be a very free place where people could freely exchange information. And what we're seeing like Facebook shutting down this week. We've had, oh no, Donald Trump, people saying nasty things about him on Twitter. So actually you're not allowed to say nasty things on Twitter anymore because it's Donald Trump. But last week they were saying really horrible things to Diane Abbott, and they were like threatening to kill her, and it wasn't against community standards. So it's really interesting to me and really worrying for me, the disparity between the way people are treated. And, you know, Julian Assange still hasn't been tried for anything. You know, he hasn't had a trial. We're talking about where they're going to try him. Everyone's really worried about his mental health. Apparently, at this extradition trial, the way he's apparently communicating with his defense is he is bending down on his knees to whisper something to someone who is writing it on a post-it note, and they are taking it to his barristers, the defense barristers. It's, you know, that when you hear about his treatment, it sounds really, really inhumane and disproportionate. And at the moment, he's in there for a bail violation.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Thank you very much. That's really enlightening. And we need to just watch out for these things. Finally, moment of the week, Stuart.
Mine's an interesting one. It is today. The Prime Minister has put out a bit of electioneering and stuff, hasn't he? All the local MPs have been sharing it. that Boris Johnson has announced that the UK government has decided to become the world leader in low-cost clean power generation. Just decided.
In the same way that we were going to have a world-class track and trace system.
I've decided I'm going to win the Premier League. So clearly it's going to happen. You know, we've got a government that over the last 10 years has kind of stripped out any capacity for our industry to be a world leader in eco energy. You know, we're so far behind. You know, we're a decade behind everywhere else. It's a lot of catching up. I don't think we could do it. You know, I mean, brilliant news getting, you know, offshore power generation. That's great. As long as, you know, it's not some other, you know, interest making a load of money off it. That's not great for anyone.
I think somebody will. I mean, what they're doing is 160 million, which actually is, in the wider scheme of things, not all that much. And it's focused on 3 areas, which I forget what they are. The key thing is that they are training people up. They're reskilling people, which is essential. And they're going to add another 33% onto our offshore wind capacity, which is not a bad thing. Those are great. I was at a meeting this afternoon, which is why I was so interested in this, with Northern Power Grid, and they just see this as absolutely wonderful news, because this is real money, real investment into the industry. So it's not a bad thing. But it's just who's going to benefit. That's the problem, I suppose.
I think it's disingenuous to say that you're just going to become a world leader in something without any examples of what you could do.
Well, it's they're going to improve, they say, floating wind power. I mean, most of the wind power we've got is sort of Saturn, you know, big concrete things in the middle of the sea, but they're sort of, we're apparently, sorry to undermine your point here, Stuart, but apparently we are a world leader in floating wind power, so that's going to be interesting. I don't know how that would work. I mean, they must chain it to the floor in some way, surely.
Bonnie says she thinks we need to stop trying to be a world beating anything and just try to be competent at something.
God bless, what a complete that brings moment of the week, that statement. Who said that?
Bonnie.
Bonnie, you've just trumped the lot of us. I'm going to bring moment of the week to an end, and now sort of we've kept you far too long on the preliminaries. We're going to move on to
now it's time for the big story.
Now, the big story is voted for by our listeners, and God bless you, those people who take part in our vote. We couldn't really do this without you. Have the students been cheated? Paul, you can kick off on this one, please.
Yes, I think the way it's been done has been an absolute disaster as far as students are concerned. Before, you know, it could have been done so much more wisely. It could have been done better. There could have been certain people going back to university, maybe only a fraction of them, so that if they had to do lab work, for example, or if they had to do something, you know, in the field, or they could have gone back to university, and the other people could have worked from home for a period of time until such a time it was safe. Or they could have had a good, effective test, track and trace system in place so that we knew how to alert people. We knew when to lock down, and we knew when to go for remote working for those students. But instead, we've got a system where actually some students are being imprisoned in halls of residence by private security firms. It's absolutely abhorrent.
Stuart, have they been cheated?
I would think so. They're paying a lot of money to be imprisoned in those halls. You know, you'd think they were getting perhaps some level of care for $9,000, but they're not. They've always been treated, though, haven't they? They've been the last thought of everybody for a generation.
I mean, I think just the fact that they're having to pay £9 million, 9,000. Mind you, that it solve a lot
Next
of
year,
problems, wouldn't it? The fact that they're having to pay £9,000 for what is essentially an online sort of correspondence course is horrific, isn't it?
It's the world's worst open university course, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, do you think they need a rebate?
I think they should have a rebate so that it costs nothing to go to university.
Anyway, yeah.
At all. I mean, especially on things like nursing, doctors, social workers. Society needs those things. I don't know why we're charging people to become them.
But I mean, it's a crazy thing, isn't it? Because what happens with these jobs, these social value jobs, which are sort of very often low paid, they're taking out loans on which, by the way, interest accrues, but they're never reaching the level of income to be able to start paying them back. And so, I mean, that is the most terrifying thing on earth, isn't it? Because you've got this this loan on which is just growing and growing and growing in hugeness, and you're not actually making any inroads from your salary. It is terrible. So I still think I would think, Stuart, that they need to start getting themselves together to demand a refund. You would if you went on holiday.
Absolutely. Organise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Samantha, do you not think that the students are their worst enemy? I mean, they haven't been behaving very well. Or
Oh, John. You're not blaming the students, are you?
I've seen all these pictures of them sort of gathering in huge numbers, getting very drunk in town centres. I mean, that's a bit bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I go back to what Paul was saying there about the media showing us what the media wants to see. You know, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of students across the country, and the vast majority of them are doing exactly what they've been asked to do. There's loads of speculation now that they've basically been forced to go to university and trapped there in order to give the landlords their income, and that's just abhorrent, you know, milking these children. They're not children, young people.
Trust me, they are, Samantha. They are children. When you get to my age, the sort of even the policemen look young. Carry on.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a correspondence course. Ian Hislop on Have I Got News for You, which I recommend because they've got back in the studio, said, yes, it's this totally unexpected event, October, which we knew was coming since this all kicked off. It's all about all of this last minute not preparing for things, you know, the government, and not forgetting these are the same young people who were totally messed around with their A-level results. I mean, what a terrible year to be 17 and 18, you know. I really, really feel for them. No extra help for their mental health, by the way. All of that will be pushed onto the universities. I feel for the universities because they do still have to provide lots of services, but really the government should have got in there early doors and said, okay, you're going to need this extra infrastructure. We're going to need you to do X, Y, Z. Here is some support to do that. Here is some training. Here's some money for laptops. Come on.
Samantha, you wanted as your moment of the week, and I wouldn't let you because I wanted to bring it up here. That sort of an absolute change of mood here, because I'm hesitant even to suggest it's so great is the tragedy. But you wanted to talk about the tragic death of those 3 students from drugs, particularly 2 of them in the same hall of residence who've been taking ketamine. I mean, what were you going to say about that?
Well, I mean, obviously, this is again this same cohort of students that have had such a horrific year. They've gone away to university, and you know, uh, obviously, I don't condone using drugs, but lots of people do, and you don't deserve to die from it. And it's just such a shame, such a tragic situation that these three students have died in suspected drugs related incidents. and it just brings back this thing that I think we all need to remember when it comes to, we're going to be choosing our next police and crime commissioner next year, which is one of those things that people don't really, the voter turnout on it's really low, but they set priorities like how we deal with drug related harm and what's the best way to do it. And we have done some really good work in County Durham previously about reducing the harm caused by drugs, and I really hope we're going to continue on that tact, because it's not a great vote winner. People don't like it. People think you're being soft on drugs, but you've got to be hard on the people who are making the most money, and the big boys and the big criminals. And these young people didn't deserve to die, and if we had more enforcement on that side of it, then they might still be alive.
I mean, on that one, my heart just wrung itself up out like a dishcloth, because they showed that picture of that lovely young sixth former wearing a uniform, and sort of, she'd been there 2 days, Samantha. And as you know, you're a parent. Your child gets to university, you send them off with all those hopes, and 2 days later, what a senseless and wasted death. Just my heart broke for them. And you're absolutely right that there needs to be we need to hit where we need to hit to get this stopped, rather than sort of going after individual users. We need to be getting at the people who are running it, and maybe some kind of softening at the bottom end is part of that. Paul, I've got a question for you. Is this not is the government's policy here just not the cleverest herd immunity strategy you have ever heard in your life? I mean, what they've done is they've got all these young people who are generally not going to die for it. They've locked them all in great halls of residence together, and now they're all just merrily giving each other herd immunity. Sort of, do you smell a conspiracy here?
Are you talking to me?
I'm not one for conspiracy theories. I am one for conspiracy facts. I suppose time will tell. There are things where people do conspire to do certain things, and we're going to need a disingenuous button on my little soundboard over there at one point. We're going to have Mr. Howell saying disingenuous, and I'm going to just say that, because I think the government's response in a lot of ways to this whole crisis has been disingenuous. So we've seen like the way they've responded. Originally they wanted herd immunity, then they denied wanting herd immunity. I still think there is an element of that, but actually look for the most obvious conclusion. They wanted money going through the economy. Richie Sunak this week has said that he's going to raise taxes. That's probably going to be on low income people. They will always look after the interests of big business. They will always look after the interests of property owners, ownership. That's what this country is being built on. It's been built on rich landowners and other people working for them, and the way you extract wealth from from the people of the country is through those means. And I think it's probably more to do with that than a herd immunity thing, but I don't know. Time will tell.
Final question. I'll bring this thing to an end. Stuart, yours is the last word. I mean, what has to happen now? Where do you think we ought to go with this, Stuart?
We could ask the students what they think would be a good idea.
Brilliant. Never thought of that. That is a counsellor. What am I going to do about this? So I said, well, why don't you ask the people who are being in trouble with it? Yes, that's a jolly good idea. And with that bon mot, I'm going to bring this to an end. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. And we now go into, we no listener guest this week. What's the matter with you people? So we just love to have you on for 10 minutes to talk to us. And so we're not doing all the talking. Sort of next week, get yourself, make up a question or choose a question from the list. We'll bring you on. But no listener guest this week. It's straight to... I ask this every week and I forget every week. Who's singing, Paul? That's not you, is it?
Yeah.
You're singing that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic.
We just put a load of distortion on it and had the most fun recording that. We just did everything that you're not supposed to do. It was just crazy, like amounts of distortion that you're not really meant to do and things. So it was dead good. I enjoyed recording it.
Sounded brilliant. Most of
that song's one note, by the way, a one-note song practically.
Normally you can't hear the words, but it's brilliant mixing. Okay. The first thing we're going to talk about is presidential election chaos. Let's start by talking about that sort of infamous debate. Sam, is it a case of abandon hope, all ye who enter here?
Well, I mean, obviously, circumstances have overtaken us, and Trump has once again proven what a total idiot he is. But at that time, my newsfeed was full of my American friends going, "There are no winners here. These are both fools. All this is old people shouting at each other, help." And it did look like that. I mean, but now I'm seeing the t-shirts, the shut up man, shut up t-shirts. I like them. I want one of those.
I mean, I was listening to the news quiz on Radio 4, and there's one of the comedians there said, is this the best two people that American can find to put forward? Who do you think won? Sam?
Not the moderator, that's for sure. Gosh, I mean, he was a chocolate fire guard, wasn't he? He didn't do very good at all. I think the point where Trump couldn't condemn white supremacists, and he basically like gave them a huge win by calling them out on national television and telling them to stand up and stand by, and they loved it, and this is where political rhetoric really crosses the boundary into real life harm. There will have been real minorities like assaulted because of that comment. There will have been a spike. We know this happens when it happened when Boris Johnson did the whole Muslim women look like letterboxes thing. There was a spike in hate crime against Muslim women, and I think people really need to be mindful of their language. It comes to something when the brand Fred Perry is showing more leadership than the President of the United States. Fred Perry actually discontinued one of their t-shirts and put out a public statement distancing themselves from the Proud Boys, because the Proud Boys started using it as their uniform, and that's leadership. Well done them.
Yeah. Very worrying over there. Sort of, Stuart, talk to us about this illness. Is it put on? Do you think it's just an election ploy, or is it Trump seizing the moment? I mean, what's going on there with all this stuff?
Is mental illness or is COVID?
Well, sort of. Unfortunately, yes. He's. I think they're closely related. But his COVID illness. What do you make to all this?
Well, we could only hope that there was a speedy, resolution for that. I didn't get the resolution I wanted. I won't lie. Is it, really good timing because it shuts down any debate and all of a sudden everybody feels sorry for him? All the newspapers are saying that he's got it. He understands the virus. And, he didn't understand when 200,000 Americans had died.
I mean, what he's saying is that it's nothing to worry about. It's beatable. He's beaten it.
Well, he used the words brave and like a man, didn't he? Which means like all those 200,000 people who died, they just weren't brave enough to beat the virus. That's what he's saying.
Irresponsible.
Absolutely. But it's, just like everything he does, it's all about Donald Trump. Doesn't care about anyone else. Doesn't think about the outcomes for anyone else. I mean, just today, he's announced that he's not going to have any more negotiations before the election regarding the stimulus package for America right now. And obviously, thousands upon thousands of businesses, are depending on some kind of economic stimulus to survive this virus. And he's just decided that it's a job for another time. That's mental illness if you're willing to sacrifice all
that. What they're saying in the newspapers is that he is losing by such actions. Obviously you've got your kind of Trumpites who are just fanatical Trump supporters who are just going to vote for him anyway. But there were an awful lot of blue collar workers who trusted him to save their jobs, who are now deeply critical of him. I mean, do you think that is he going to win? Is he going to lose? What's your feeling on that?
Honestly, I couldn't predict it. It's such a fluid situation in America right now. I wouldn't want to call it. And it's not like there's an incredible candidate on the opposite side for me. For me, it's two old men having arguments with each other in that debate. It was like Abe Simpson having an argument with Abe Simpson. You know what I mean? It got nowhere. It did nothing. There was nothing in it other than just two old people having an argument.
And of course, the point about that is that the Democrats are like the Labour Party. They rely on a motivation to vote. Theirs is the vote that tends to stay at home. And when you look at those people, you just think, well, what's the point? It's really bad for the Democrats. Paul, I was reading one thing in the newspaper, and it said that basically the Trump people, society in the USA has fractured because essentially the Trumpites have seceded already. They own no allegiance to the United States of America. They've just seceded. And I mean, do you see in this a real danger for American democracy altogether? I mean, do you think that the thing's just going to fracture altogether at the end of it, or do you think that America that I'm overreacting here and it'll just go and they'll have the election and the world will go on anyway?
I think there's a really worrying set of events going on at the moment. I worry about the polarization, the way people are either with Trump or against him. Like, I understand being against Trump, and I sort of understand being with him as well. If you buy into what he's saying, and if you buy into the idea that these awful things are happening because of others and other people, and because they haven't built a wall and all those things, because people who are poor, people who are desperate, will believe an easily presentable solution to them. But I think what worries me is just the way people are treating one another and the way the discourse is. Like, he told people to turn up outside his hospital for a rally and they all don't have masks on. And then he came out and said that he felt 20 years younger having had COVID, and then basically went on a rant about how brilliant American farmer is because he's trying to make money for his mates. But he is then also at the same time trying to be a man of the people. And if you're against that, there were a lot of people saying they hoped something bad happened to Donald Trump. I don't go around hoping that kind of thing ever. It's not really who I am, but I don't blame people for thinking, actually, I don't like. Just outside my house, there was a party about the death of Margaret Thatcher at Easington when I lived there. And I can understand that, she wouldn't have shed a tear for the miners who died of respiratory diseases, or who died through suicide following the awful things that happened to her. She wouldn't have shed a tear for that. So why shouldn't they, be really pleased that Margaret Thatcher died, the person who ruined their village, the person who ruined their lives? But now you're not allowed to say anything. Like, if you say, actually, I'm apathetic about Donald Trump not being alive anymore, even apathy is not good enough for these people. They would be like, you've got to support your president. You've got to wish him well. It's inhuman not to. What about people drowning in the Mediterranean or in the Channel? No, they deserve to die. That's fine. It's fine to be awful about those people. And it's really, really worrying, this awful like polarization that we have, where you can be completely inhumane to one set of people, but if people who are kind to those people, who they've been arguing with the people who are unkind to them, then say, actually, the world might be a better place if he was no longer the leader of the United States of America. You're not allowed to say that. You're really not allowed to say that. You will be attacked for doing that. You might be physically attacked. Some people have been.
A world where Donald Trump was not the leader of America would be a safer world.
Well, you say that, but his vice president is Pence. I'm not convinced he's better.
Do you think, who do you think is going to win the election, Sam?
Well, I've been informed by Mark Rattigan that Trump is 16 points behind. I mean, the only poll that matters is the election, as we know. I'm very concerned about how much Trump is trying to discredit the whole electoral system and trying to tell people that there will be voter fraud. And I'm worried about what happens, what kind of civil disobedience might happen if Trump doesn't win.
I mean, the Democrats are very worried, genuinely worried, that he's going to just refuse to accept the results of the election and refuse to stand down. That would be a really interesting thing. It's okay. Thank you very much indeed for those. People, are you making comments about this? Who do you think is going to win? Do you think that this illness is just a clever ruse by Trump to get that he's been on the phone to Boris and said, if you make up an illness, my golly, they all love you. Maybe is this what's going on there? What do you think about? Do you see American democracy collapsing, or do you think it's really well and healthy? And that this is all this churn is just part of normal politics. What do you think about it? Make your comment on that.
Sorry, John. American politics is interesting as far as democracy goes as well, though, because they're in a two-party system, and those parties are they're in sort of. The UK became like this, where the Conservatives and Labour became quite close to one another politically, certainly economically. And then the gap opened up, and then it opened up, and then things come back together and things. But in the USA, they are quite close together until Trump started adding in this quite almost fascist rhetoric into the system. But economically, there isn't anything being argued. There's a little bit of argument around Medicare, healthcare, where Trump obviously got the best healthcare in the world, now saying American healthcare is the best healthcare in the world. You got it for free, mate. That would have cost normal people, that would have ruined them for the rest of their lives. They would not have been able to afford those bills. And you got that. But he's trying to say that they've got these amazing things. So there's a bit of talk around healthcare, but they don't want to do anything particularly radical. This argument isn't really about left and right in the traditional sense of looking after the people or looking after the rich people, so it's not about the many against the few. It's kind of about how far we go with regards to fascism and whether we'll give them a little bit of help, but there's no real argument about the financial model. It's interesting.
Thank you, Paul. I am going to move on now with your permission, people, to this is just awful. Sort of asylum. I mean, I have never been as much in despair as I was when I heard that we were going to. What is it? Is it an offshore? Is it Ascension Island? We're going to shove them all on. I mean. Sort of that's presumably because we lost control of Australia. We can't send them down anymore. I mean, have you ever heard anything? I mean, I was just in despair when this sort of talk to us about this, Paul, for a while. Sort of, what do you reckon to Priti Patel suggesting that when people arrive here, when asylum seekers arrive here, we should shove her on an island in the middle of the Atlantic.
Dead cat electioneering, nasty, horrible rhetoric to try to make people hate each other. You know, they look at the Conservatives' record on immigration, for example, and they always try and blur the lines between asylum seekers, immigration, and all these things. Basically, immigration is just people who move from one place to another. It's not really a threatening thing. You know, you're much better off knowing who is coming in and saying, oh, it's okay to come in. But anyway, they haven't managed to get the immigration figures down very much in the last 10 years. The only way they managed to do it is to make us slightly less economically attractive to people by having a worse, like, you know, having worse conditions for workers and things like that. So it doesn't really, it's not really a good policy. Make your country worse so people don't really want to come here as much isn't really a coherent policy. But I think that, you know, you've had go home vans, you've had the hostile environment, you've had the Windrush scandal, you've had all these awful things where they're trying to make these headline deportation cases. You know, there's, you know, it hasn't really changed a thing. So I think what's happening at the moment is you've got this massive COVID crisis. They're dealing with it badly. Test, track, and trace is a disaster. The Conservatives are desperately unpopular. When do we get popular? Let's appeal to the baser instinct. We know for the past 20, 30 years, the Murdoch press has been villainizing people who, you know, well, immigrants really, basically saying they're over here to steal your job. We're doing all the, you know, they're awful people. You can't trust them. They know they're on firm ground if they throw that dead cat in there. Oh, we've been thinking about doing this. They haven't been doing it. You look into it, they haven't been doing it. Some people have come up with it in a meeting. It's like us now saying, oh, what if we do this? It doesn't mean anything. I don't really believe there are any firm plans to do that. They don't really have any firm plans. A sensible plan would be to have a real way of applying for asylum or applying to come into the country from elsewhere without having to come over on a boat, on a boat made out of Coke bottles or something. You know, just have a nice, sensible system where people can apply for asylum in a safe way, so everyone knows about them. That would be a system. Saying that you're going to have like wave machines to kill people if they're coming over on boats isn't a system. It's absolute stupidity, but it's trying to appeal to those voters who can maybe remember that last time. Oh, remember when they were going to kill immigrants? I like that. That's what it's for.
Stuart, what's your take on this?
Scary stuff, innit? It's like, for me, it feels a bit like the dipping their toe into the public's reaction. You know, see what's acceptable and how far they can push the boundary before they actually announce anything, which has kind of been what this government's done, like on everything for the last, you know, what, nearly a year, isn't it? They test the public reaction, see how far they can go, and this is like really extreme stuff, isn't it?
It reminds me of what the Nazis proposed for the Jews in 1930s Germany. They were going to send them off send them all off to Madagascar. It's exactly the same idea, yeah. And you just wonder what on earth made us suggest this, and that's a brilliant idea, Stuart. So that they throw these things out there, and then they just it is to distract, Paul, but it's also to just test what people think about it. Sam, have you got a comment?
I've got comments, yeah. Well, I mean, the argument for the general man on the street is these people can't come over here and claim our benefits and use our welfare. So if that's the argument, shipping them off to Ascension Island, which is, by the way, down like by Africa.
4,000 miles.
How many?
4,000.
4,000 miles. That's not a cost saving measure, is it? That's not going to cost less money. It also doesn't actually stop the problem of dinghies washing up on our shores, by the way, because if what is happening in people's imagination is true, people are just washing up on our shores and walking into the country. That doesn't happen, by the way. But the other thing, I think it's really important to try and bring this back to real life people. We had a situation in Shildon, which I can't talk about as part of the settlement. But we had a situation in Shildon where there was a young lad who was child trafficked here, you know, used as a slave, and luckily got adopted by a nice family. And long story short, he's been able to stay here. And it was really important to humanize what an actual illegal immigrant looks like. Usually there's somebody who's been dragged here, whether they like it or not, and being given a terrible way of life where you can't access healthcare, you can't access basic like standards of living and a minimum wage. You know, you're in a room with 15 other kids, and you're only allowed out when your master lets you out, you know. So there's that. But while we're talking about immigration, I just want to give a quick shout out to Asim Brown. I don't know whether you've seen this story, but Asim Brown is a young man who is 21. He's autistic, and he was convicted of a crime, and as part of his crime, he's being deported when he leaves prison, and he's being deported to Jamaica because he has Jamaican citizenship, but he's never been there before, and his understanding of what is happening to him is so low because of his disability. He actually asked his mum, who lives in Dudley and who is his citizen as he was, he actually asked his mum when he gets sent to Jamaica what bus he needs to get to come home to visit her. This is the reality of our system at the moment, and it's absolutely disgusting. You know, we really need to look at these people as human beings and treat them with some basic dignity.
I'm going to stop that there. That's a perfect statement. Thank you, Sam. And it does these little touches bring home that these people are human beings, and how the hell can you treat them like that and pretend it's right to do so? God bless you. Lovely stuff. Thank you, everybody. And we just have one last thing to talk about for the last 5 minutes. And of course, it is the most important subject of the evening. So I'm going to, I think I'm going to take you in alphabetical order. Paul Daly, which is the greatest fish and chip shop in the world?
It's hard for me because I'm a vegan, so so it's not really something I do.
Just about interrupting you, Paul. Just interrupting you. I preached on Sunday. It was Climate Sunday, and they invited me through to Durham to preach in a couple of churches. And as part of my study for that, if you read the Bible story of the creation, God intended us all to be plant-based. Animals and human beings. It doesn't say that he gave plants for animals to eat, and then he gave animals and plants for human beings to eat. It says he gave plants for animals to eat, and he gave plants for human beings to eat. We were supposed, in God's original plan before the fall, we were supposed to be vegetarians. So that blew my mind. Anyway, I interrupted you rudely. Carry on.
It's all right. That always brings me back there as well. It's like, who's the first person who thought, I'm going to milk that cow? That's for me. I'm jealous of that baby cow. I'm gonna get a bit of that action. But anyway, yeah. So I will vouch for my. There's when I didn't used to be a vegan, we used to get fish and chips from the Top Fish Shop at Wingate, and I can't remember what the other one's called. But there's two really nice fish and chip shops in Wingate that I will go to. I have had a nice vegan fish and chips from the ship in Ousburn in Newcastle. That's nice. Vegan
That's
fish and
a
chips.
recommendation of vegan fish and chips, presumably with no fish.
It's kind of like, it tastes a bit like fish. I think it's tofu. It's something. Yeah, it was something. It was nice.
I always think it's you know, it's sort of I'm going to be vegan or I'm going to be vegetarian, but I'm going to get something that tastes like meat. Well, eat meat then. Stuart, the best fish and chip shop in the world?
Oh, that would be the Almighty Cod in Seaton Crew. Without a doubt. Now I'm starving and I really want it, and you've You've spoilt me.
She wasn't swearing at
all,
me, Chilton.
all over the country, people listening in to the takeaway, and I'll have sort of haddock and chips. Take the skin off. Sort of the what recommends the almighty cod for you?
It's just brilliant. It's quality stuff. You know, the curry is like, it didn't come out of a packet.
You have curry with your fish and chips.
Well, yeah.
Curry sauce.
I'm not a monster.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm not one of these people who put gravy on fish.
It's just gravy is awful as well. It's vinegar and salt. What's the matter with you? Sort of obviously never been brought up in the right part of the world. Sam, best chip shop.
A shout out to Fridays in Shildon, because they are amazing. And not only are they a brilliant fish and chip shop, they also do pizzas and kebabs.
No, very good indeed. Yes, diversification. So love this local loyalty. Unfortunately, you're not getting it from me. The Wetherby Whaler. I know, Paul, you don't, but if you're ever going up and down the A1, drop into Wetherby and the Wetherby Whaler. And for me, it's the batter that makes it. And sort of
Why have we asked this question? Where did it come from? What?
It was one of the things on the list of questions that we posed, and it comes from, I can't remember, sort of, hang on, I'm just clicking here. It comes from a thing in the Northern Echo, that they've done something on the best fish and chip shop in the world. I'm just bringing it up now, and the readers have voted for the best fish and chip shops in the Northeast, and so it's going too slowly to be able to read them out to you, but you can read it for yourself if you go onto the website. And I sort of, and we've got just 60 seconds left. Readers, for the final thing, what's your best fish and chip shop in the world? These are the ones in the Northern Echo. Here we go. Harbour View, Seaton Sluice. Bartlett Street, Darlington, little back street one, that looks gorgeous. Seabreeze, Redcar, Trenches in Whitley Bay, Trenches in Whitby is lovely as well. And Westgate, oh hang on, it's crashed. And Westgate Fish and Chips in Thirsk. Katie's Traditional Fish and Chips in Barnet Castle. Barton's in Darlington. Waterfront in North Shields. There you go. Those are the best fish and chip shops in the Northeast. So
I've just been reminded of an Alan Partridge podcast that I've been listening to lately, and he advertises vegan fish and chips. And he says, so it's a fish and chip shop. What can you get? Chips.
Anyway,
this goes on and on about how you can try these vegan chips. Brilliant.
Just a bit of fun at the end. People, you've been brilliant today. The insight you show is always fantastic. Thank you so very much indeed. I'll no doubt forget something and you don't need to tell me, but as far as I'm aware now, we're going to close down. We're going to finish with No Pasaran, and then we're going to come back and Sam's going to lead us through some of the comments. God bless you all. Listeners, thank you very much. You don't need to stay for the chill out zone. You can go and get on.
Please do, though.
You're welcome to stay if you want. You've made the comments. You can hear what we have to say about them. It's absolutely smashing. But if you're leaving us now, goodbye. God bless. See you next week. Spot on as always. And thanks for the comments. Bye bye.
See you there. Bye.
Keep the red flag flying there.